So 30 years ago, I noticed by this way, I said I was going to keep it brief, and then my...
Start with 30
3 decades to cover now.
I'm just going to talk fast. So 30 years ago, 1985, I'm 16 years old. I was in a Los Angeles-based band, The Just. So one day, the drummer, Eric Asadorian, one of my closest friends to this day, actually 30 years later, unilaterally and summarily ceased speaking to me. There was no explanation. Had I offended him somehow? He didn't seem to be upset with me. So, quite the contrary, actually. I couldn't figure it out. This went on for a day or two, during which, through a series of clever clues and ciphers, I slowly began to unfold his cryptic message. He had seen the movie Brazil, and he felt so strongly that I needed to see it that he refused to speak to me until I had done so. Sure, there was kind of a weird Brazilian redundant mixed message there, and it just may have been easier for him to just tell me how fucking good this movie was and just go fucking see it ASAP. But we were young and stupid and trying to be cocksure rock stars, and back then, it just all made sense. At the time, I knew very little about this movie Brazil. I knew that it was directed by and starred the dudes from Monty Python, and Monty Python had been a part of my life for a few years at that point. They were nothing short of godlike deities. And I knew there were some dudes from the Royal Shakespeare Company in it, like that guy from Something Wicked This Way Comes, so that was kind of cool. And I knew De Niro was in it, and he was the biggest badass whatever was to me at the time, so I went. I was not prepared. My 16-year-old mind was blown. Gilliam's visionary masterpiece takes us not into the future, but sidesteps us into a slightly alternative now, a dystopian, totalitarian society utterly dependent on its own unnecessarily convoluted technology and under the constant threat of terrorist attack. Enter Sam Lowry, an uneasy technocrat happy to be a nameless, faceless cog in the wheel working for the Ministry of Information. Sam's routine is dull, lonely, and without meaning. But he just doesn't seem to care. He's just trying to get through the day as unscathed by humanity as possible. He just wants to be left alone. But fate seems to be conspiring against Sam, and he himself even puts up impossible barriers in his own dreams, fantasies of flight where he escapes the daily drudgery while pursuing his beautiful dream mate. As Sam tries to deliver a compensation check for the wrongful death of Harry Buttle, his path crosses with the very girl from his dreams. He also runs into a former government employee, Harry Tuttle, now working as a mercenary HVAC repairman. And the government is after Tuttle, but accidentally arrested Buttle, and, well, poor Sam is eventually mistaken for a terrorist himself, forcing him and his dream girl to flee from their militarized government. Lowry's adventure comes to a phantasmagoric conclusion, however, at the hands of Michael Palin in a grotesque baby mask, leaving our hero as a drooling, humming, broken man in an ironic state of perpetual bliss, at last alone with his dream girl, if only in his dreams. In his masterpiece, Gilliam manages to create a frenetic and harried world cluttered by zigzagging ductwork, a maze of wires, and other doodads and thingamajigs that hum and buzz and clank and breathe inside every room and every wall. He brilliantly moves technology simultaneously forward and backward, creating a steampunk world of gratuitous complication, a world where technology constantly fails, creating more havoc and more problems than solutions. The production design is brilliant. The script by Gilliam, Tom Stoppard, and Gilliam's go-to guy, Charles McGowan, is of Orwellian clairvoyance. Gilliam's unmistakable message is a familiar one, a warning that for all the technology that enters our lives, with the promises of making things easier and faster and better and cooler, it also makes things more difficult, impersonal, autocratic, and susceptible to attack. Like many great artists, Gilliam was ahead of his time, seeing into a not-too-distant future where government has ground to a halt, bureaucracy has collapsed under the weight of its own paperwork and redundancies, and our reliance on technology makes us more vulnerable than ever before. But Brazil is so much more than just a cautionary tale. It speaks to the nature of our very society and culture today, questioning our hyperreactivity to the thought of terrorism and how much freedom we're willing to relinquish in order to have the appearance of safety. In fact, I personally think that Gilliam's most prescient moment in the film comes at the very beginning of Brazil, in the context of an interview with a high-ranking official in the Ministry of Information. When questioned about the recent rash of terrorist bombings, the motives are attributed to bad sportsmanship. 30 years later, and the sentiment is more relevant than ever.
Yeah, Adam, excellent job as always, man. So much to be talked about here, so much to be said, so much to be thought about. Let me just first say this. This is probably in all the time that cinema has existed, this is probably the perfect film. I don't think there might possibly not even be a better film ever made than this film right here. And I know
that's high praise, sir.
But listen, I know it's a lot to say, and it's kind of it's kind of ridiculous to say, but I really think it's true. I think this is it. This is the film. This is the perfect film. It's unbelievably good. It's unbelievably good. And Adam, let's start at the beginning of your intro, because nobody comes across this film now unless it's really passed down from like someone that might be a little bit older than you, or maybe you're your same age, but you just don't go, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to watch Brazil today. Joe, this is true, man. Somebody turns you on to a film like this.
Well, for me, for sure, and I agree with you guys, and it's so great that this movie came up, and it's so close to both of you guys, and that both of you consider it among your favorites, maybe your number one,
right?
And me too, man. It's definitely within the top five,
absolutely,
for me.
And I think viewing it recently, it's without a doubt top three. I don't think I could come across a more beautiful, a more perfect, a more poignant, a more fantastic film than Brazil. I don't even think it's possible. If there's something, hey, listen, any of our listeners, if you have any suggestions, and it doesn't have to be the same subject, but this is a perfect movie.
It ends up. Oh, hold on, pause. Adam, you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I disappeared for a second, but I'm back.
Okay. Well, I think that it's a matter of taste when you get down to great films like 2001, Citizen Kane, Brazil, and like whatever else typically tops the list of best film, Goodfellas or The Godfather,
sure.
All those films.
Sure.
It just becomes a matter of personal taste. But I
absolutely.
think that I think like you and I, Tom, I think that we both came upon this film at a time in our lives where we were first realizing that film is
important,
like probably the most important art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was the most important art form of at least our time. So
absolutely.
And when I saw it, I was confounded. I was blown away. Like it took me probably 2 years to even understand that the film was a comedy, because I was so fucking blown away. It's so dense. It took me probably 2 years to even understand what was happening in the story, because I was so involved with.
It's so funny you say that. That's so true. Even as how Monty Python-esque it could be at times. Yeah, you're right, Joe. You don't really completely understand when you first watch this film what exactly the tone is and what's going on.
Like if I saw it now for the first time, I would, obviously more savvy. I'd be like, oh, this is a satire. This is, you know what I mean? It's political commentary, this and that and the other thing. I had no way to place it when I saw it. It is so dense, man. I would focus on, the littlest things, and not even on like just stuff like the menus, what the implications are of that waiter demanding that they order like with a number. Like I would just be stuck on that. Like I'd be like, yes, that's exactly, you know what I mean? Like little shit like that. Or it's just amazing. Or like having them sign for that person that they kidnap and arrest. It's like that's exactly what. And having no idea that as horror, it's so horrifying, but it's hilarious. Right. And I didn't even understand that it was hilarious. Right. Probably like the fifth time I saw it.
Oh, and you know what, guys, too? What I really appreciated during this viewing was just, watching it on Blu-ray and just watching it on a bigger television screen and just seeing everything so clearly. The production design in this film is, I can't even put it into I can't even use a simple word like that to describe it.
I can only imagine how much fun they had putting those sets together and putting those props together. They must have just had a blast. doing
Right,
that.
those posters in the background, were just. I mean, I never noticed.
Suspicion breeds confidence.
Yeah.
Like I would think about that for like a week.
Yep. Yeah. No,
You
that's
know
it.
what I
There's
mean?
so many layers. I mean, when I sat down, even like, how do I even intro that? Like, how do I talk? I can't really dissect it. That has to come up in the conversation because there's just way, way too much.
It's dense.
Yeah.
It's
Hey,
really
listen, I would not.
Masterpiece.
I would not want to intro this. As much as I love this movie, the last thing I would want to do is intro that film for this show. I would not want that job. Joe, you gave this guy probably the most difficult task.
Well, for some reason, I just really thought, like, I did really consider who I was assigning these to. I thought, like, the absurdity of Harvey, like, just that would really fit with Jeff's sense of humor,
Right.
and I guess I kind of that was a little bit of a miscalculation, but I'm glad that this one hit the mark.
No, significant.
It was a great job, man.
And a significant movie for me, not just the movie itself, but like at the time in my life. Like I said, I was 16. I was in a band in LA. I was just starting to I was driving and getting around now and was like more independent. And it was more, I was becoming, more anti-establishment and that whole thing that just hit at that time in my life. And then that movie landed in my lap. And I had a very similar experience as you guys did with it.
So you were 16 when it came out, and you saw it in the movie theater as a new release.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Wow,
unreal.
1985, yeah.
See, we didn't see it, Tom, until what? I
early
don't know.
20s, I think you and I were probably turned. I don't know if you saw it before you and I became friends.
I didn't. I think I saw it right. I think I watched it with Taverny.
Joe Taverny turned it. Yeah. I remember the experience, and I don't know if you were there or not, but we were up late drinking and smoking and whatnot in a living room in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and we had the cable on, and then this cable, back then you didn't know what the fuck was coming on. Like, you had no idea what was on next. So, like, this movie ends, and then it says, like, the commercial after the movie on HBO or Encore or whatever it was like, up next, Brazil. And now our friend Joe's father is, like, this film professor, and Joe had always had access to, like, films that...
Huge library.
Yeah, it was great. You could spend. I used to love to spend the day at our friend's house because you could just watch 3 or 4 movies. You could go into the library, pick them out. It was awesome. And anyway, so Joe Taverny was familiar with this film, and I don't know if you were there or not, Joe. You probably were. I don't know if you were. I don't know if you.
I definitely watched it for the first time with Taverny. I'm not
so
sure.
he was like, we gotta watch it, and I'm like, Brazil. I thought it was like a late night, adult film or something. It just sounded
like
ridiculous.
Like Brazilian women getting waxes.
I had no idea what the fuck was gonna happen. So I'm like, whatever. I'm drinking. I'm stoned. I'm ready to watch a movie with my pals. And I remember it came on, and I was like really just blown away by it. And of course, after you watch something like that for the first time, if you're any kind of a cinephile or somewhat of an intelligent person, it's gonna stick with you, and you're gonna seek it out again. So, and that's what happened. I would say that over the past 20 years, every few years you seek out Brazil, you watch it, and you enjoy it. I know. And this is a great way to get Jeff into this conversation, because I'm pretty sure, Jeff, that either myself or someone else close to you probably turned you on to this originally.
Well, that I'm gonna say that that's technically true. Meaning that we definitely put it on once or twice at like just way too late. So I consider watching it last week the first time I'd actually seen the movie.
Okay. So what's your? I'd love to hear that.
Sure, let's do it.
Fresh perspective.
Well, first, couple of things I want to say. It's funny that you consider this the perfect movie, being that it's a movie that has about 4 or 5 different versions.
Yeah,
and there's no like real defined. I mean, there is. There's just so many.
Yeah.
Right,
versions.
Right, yeah,
and
it went through production hell, and there were different versions released because they were there. It was like this epic battle.
They made a documentary about it called "The Battle for Brazil."
Yeah, I have that book
Yeah.
actually.
Or a book rather. My
I
bad.
have
Yeah.
the book, yeah.
And even like the one that I watched, like I'm not even, I can't even be 100% sure that we all watched, that I watched the same one as,
Right.
as everyone
I
else.
think that
But, I mean,
eventually, after the first couple of years, I think that they decide, Gilliam finally had his way.
That's what I
and so that
read.
was
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's what Joe. You're right. I mean, and again, you can't be certain about that, but from what I researched, that eventually it became his film, and that's what people were seeing.
yeah. But even I was gonna say too, you were talking about, getting to see it big and on Blu-ray and stuff. Netflix apparently only has the first generation DVDs, which have tiny, letterboxed crammed into the small, the smallest possible square on the screen. So it's like, watching it for the first time with like not optimum, uh, you know, resolution or graphics. Like it's, I'd like to.
Oh boy, Jeff's gonna
Yeah.
panic here. He's gonna get on it right now. I have a feeling.
What?
He's laying the groundwork.
Yeah, what's going on, Jeff?
Yeah, all right. What? So I just want to get that. So I really liked it, but I think, and I definitely want to watch it maybe one or two more times, because I think there is just too much happening.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time sort of, like making sense of it all as a whole. Like there's a lot of great stuff that I like. I loved all the parts of it, but as a sort of unified whole, like I definitely want to watch it a few more times to really get it.
The kind of movie you got to see multiple times. That's what
Yeah.
you guys were saying earlier. It truly, I mean, I've seen this movie dozens of times. I'm still finding new things in it every time I look at it.
Yeah.
And some of that just
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm looking at different parts of the screen, and parts of it is just as I get to different points in my life, different parts ring out differently now than would have when I was 16 or 20 or 30. So it's a movie that it ages well, and it requires multiple viewing.
Yeah, and I'd love to see a good like a Blu-ray or even like
Check
a
out
theater
Voodoo.
screening of it.
Check out voodoo.com. You can it's like Netflix instant download, and they have the like super HD version of it.
Right.
That's quality.
All right. Yeah. Or I think Criterion just did a Blu-ray of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure I could wrangle that somehow.
Yeah, the Blu-ray was awesome too. It was great to see that. The last time I saw it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago, and it was a DVD which also contained the cut of the cut that the studio wanted to release.
Yeah.
Which was it was so weird. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I tried to watch, I obviously watched it as Gilliam, the director's cut or whatever. And then I put on that other cut, and it is insane how you can change a movie by editing it. Like that's like a textbook case of how it's a real, for anybody who's a serious cinephile, like it's got nothing to do. You can watch
nuts that listen to us.
Yeah, you can go and watch that, find that DVD that has both of those cuts on it, and you can compare and see the power of editing and really just see what this guy went through to, like, the battle was just friggin' epic. What happened to
Gilliam is such a beleaguered mad genius. He has so many of his movies are battles. I'm sure you guys have seen Lost in La Mancha and just the story of the screenplay and getting Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas made. It's always a struggle for that dude, and sometimes he'll fart out a turd here and there, but boy, that dude fights for his vision. That's for sure.
So you think this is his best film? Probably.
No, well, I am partial to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but I have a very personal connection to that film and that book, and so that. But I'll tell you what, two of Gilliam's movies, these two are in like my all-time top 10 movies.
Adam, yeah. Well, listen, there's a lot to be said about Fear and Loathing, because obviously that's a very difficult film to make. And I think what he did, how he translated that man's work onto the screen, is something. You're right. He needs to be applauded for that, because that's an excellent.
And unfortunately, it was on most critics' 10 worst of the year, and it's one of my all-time favorites. So.
That was one of my all-time favorite movie-going experiences was watching Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. The day, yeah, I mean, it was like around I think it was close to the day, if not the day that it came out. Myself and another brother of mine went in the afternoon to see the movie, and it was just a really, I mean, plus I was into that kind of, into him at the time anyway, but it was just a really great movie going experience. It's just a great, I mean, all the performances. I mean, just again with the production design with this guy Joseph. There's nobody that puts out like this. His production design is some of the most unique shit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that. Hey, listen, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this guy. It's quite. I mean, it's a little crazy that I'm going to say this, but this guy might be responsible for not only the greatest feature film ever made, but he also might possibly be responsible for the greatest short film ever made, and that's Crimson Permanent Insurance.
That's a great one. It's a great film. That's so well done.
I don't think I've seen that. I don't even know what that is.
It opens The Meaning of Life. It's a short film.
Okay. Yes. All right. I know.
That's great.
That's great. Well, yeah. I mean, the fact that he cut his teeth doing all those animations for Monty Python, obviously, he had a lot of time to work out. I mean, he was a visual artist, so it was just really neat to see him have this was just that one moment where he fought really hard to get this thing into production, and somehow he wrangled full control, at least in the production phase of it, and it just really shows, and God, it's so great to see a movie that doesn't have CGI stuff, to see how they work it with practical effects and stuff. This is a conversation we used to have on the horror show when we used to be all horror all the time. But this is a perfect example of a dude really doing great things with really practical effects and the tactile feel of all that stuff. And geez, man, when I saw the first time I saw that freaking coffin fall over and those freaking bones got I still to this day, I saw it, I braced myself to see that scene, but it's always haunts me. It's never far from my mind. That scene,
it's great. It's great. All those and God, even the movies that are the stinkers that he's made, and there are a couple. The production design is always amazing. And I picked something up this last time that I don't know that I had noticed before. Just one of those little subtle things when he goes to meet his mother and his mother's friends for dinner the first time in the fancy restaurant, the one you're talking about. They had to order off that menu. But the ductwork, down where it comes down around the table is all mirrored and very nice. It fits into the scheme of the restaurant. It's mirrored ductwork. It's come on. Just the thought to do that is just the attention to detail is brilliant. Just brilliant.
All the wiring is I noticed this time too, in his mother's apartment, how nice the ductwork is that feeds the electric to the to the lamps and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone has to really someone has to put all of that stuff there.
Yeah,
it's amazing, to think that deliberately about that, and do it instead. Yeah, like you're saying, instead of on a computer and just being we'll put a wire here.
Yeah, when the repairmen come to fix the air conditioner, it's they open up they open up the door and it's like body parts working together. you know what I'm saying? It was beating and it was so fucking weird.
God, when he walks into his room, back into his apartment after they've taken it over with their Z1 stroke 105 or whatever.
Just for it, Joe.
Yeah, he asked for that. You walk. That is an amazing bit of sculpt. That blows away any installation piece I've ever seen. That friggin' that apartment. What they do to it,
all the wires, everything hanging down,
all that stuff in there. I bet you if you could put a still frame and find hidden shit in there for days, in that design.
Yeah, geez, man, it's unbelievable. It's the whole situation is unbelievable.
It is, man. It really is.
Frame for frame, Joe.
Yeah, and this guy is the best playing. Jonathan Pierce is just great, man. It's like he's this wounded little just puppy, big-eyed puppy in this friggin' world that's closing in on. It's just he does it so perfectly too.
Everyone is great in it. Everyone's great, and the script is just solid script. It holds up. It holds up.
Yeah, it does.
other movies of his.
It's
and,
great. I mean, all those movies in the '80s, Adam. Exactly what you're saying. It's like they get a lot of times they age really poorly. You know what I mean? But
case in point, his other film, Fisher King, right?
yeah,
Popular movie. I didn't love it, but I watched that a few years ago, and it just doesn't hold up. I don't think it holds up at all.
But Time Bandits does.
God, I haven't seen that in forever.
It does. Time Bandits holds up. 12 Monkeys holds up.
12 Monkeys.
I like
great,
12 Monkeys,
great.
but I thought somebody was crapping on that on one show. It was like
no. You and I saw that in the theater together, Joe.
I really
like it too. I have no problem with 12 Monkeys. It's fascinating. The Fisher King, though, Adam, I've seen it, but I've never really appreciated that film.
I didn't love it when I first saw it. I didn't love it, and I still don't. And I think it's
weird. If anybody was going to be crapping on 12 Monkeys, I think it might be Barassa, Joe.
I think so.
Because you know something? He likes the Fisher King.
He does like I kind of like the Fisher King too.
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about it, but I definitely like 12 Monkeys, and I'm pretty sure that he doesn't like 12 Monkeys. Dude, he is something else with his friggin' opinions. He'll rip apart the best friggin' thing and just find something to dig his claws into.
I think one of the funniest experiences on the show I've ever had is when ripping out like
Babel.
No, it was fucking One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. he was like, it's one of the worst movies ever made.
Oh God!
How does it? I can't even fathom how.
It doesn't make any sense.
I know. I don't like it.
Babel, I could take whatever. Babel's Babel. I mean, whatever. I mean, but Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
And if I remember that, I think he bulldozed through Harold and Maude and that in the same 15 minutes.
Not just Harold and Maude, Jeff. Hal Ashby's entire filmography.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's not for me. I'll pass. It's true though. It had to have been him to bash on 12 Monkeys.
I think it was like a passing comment, and I was like, "Oh, I like 12 Monkeys," but it was like we were talking about something else, so I didn't really get involved with it or whatever.
Has anyone watched anything that Gilliam has done over the past 10 years?
Jeff, you just said you said you just watched the Imaginarium of
Dr. Yeah. It wasn't good.
I'm with you on that one, Jeff. I didn't love it. I thought it was really disappointing overall.
Yeah.
And
didn't look that good.
And I didn't love the one he did. What the heck is it? The oh my gosh, the brothers, the Brothers Grimm.
Yeah, they're very. I saw both of those movies, and they're very forgettable.
Yep.
And I was like watching it,
right?
Oh, this is Gilliam, you know.
And those are like bigger budget movies too, right? With big stars.
Well, you had Heath Ledger and Matt Damon in Brothers Grimm. You had Heath Ledger, Johnny Depp, and some other names in the Imaginarium.
Right. Now I saw Tideland, and I a while back.
Like he wrote that, but he didn't direct that. Is that
didn't direct that? Okay.
I think he did.
Did he direct it? Okay, my bad.
I thought he did. He
did direct it, and I forgot that one too.
Yeah.
Like it's very, it's starting to come back to me a little bit now. But yeah, it's not. It's obviously nowhere near like the 12 Monkeys and Brazil and what was the other one? We were just
Fear and Loathing.
Oh, Fear and Loathing. Yeah, nothing like that. But Jesus, man, what probably. Maybe one of the biggest catastrophes in film history. Look, Tom, you were talking hyperbolically before. I'm going to say that maybe one of the biggest catastrophes in film history is that this guy got Don Quixote taken away from him, man, because that's one of my, I know it wasn't exactly an adaptation of Cervantes' novel, but it would have been friggin' amazing. It would have been fucking amazing, man. It's one of my favorite books. It probably is my favorite book with one of my favorite directors.
Yep.
And fuck, man, that I can't. No, Orson Welles tried to make Donkey. It's like that's like
a curse there. Yeah.
It's like a curse.
Well, that's what they were getting at in Lost in La Mancha. Now there was footage shot. Like if I remember correctly, watching that documentary.
The footage only drives your point home, man. The footage just makes it look like it was going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and he insisted on doing all like practical stuff and veering away from the CGI, which just makes me think that it would have been that much better, man.
Didn't he have midgets? Didn't he have like midgets playing giants? or something. Like he was filming.
He had some real big dudes, and then he shot them at a hyper low angle. So
That's what it was. I thought he was using midgets, but they were big guys, is what you're saying.
I think so, yeah.
Because I remember him, like, because he was watching dailies of his footage. They were showing this in a documentary, and he just had these three giants like running, like at the screen. But it was like a whatchamacallit, whatever. But he was just like, he wanted to use that as the trailer.
Right.
And it just looked completely ridiculous. He's like, "No, that's a trailer." Like that's how crazy he was. But there is somebody used the word curse on the on Don Quixote as a film. I don't know too much about what happened with Orson Welles. I know somebody else between Welles and Gilliam might have made an attempt at this as well. But watching Lost in La Mancha, it was just unbelievable about, like, everything he tried to do was a complete disaster. Like, he's shooting in the desert, and all of a sudden, like, that day, there were airplanes, like military airplanes, like, flying overhead. And, like, everything would, like...
Well, and then his main guy, who was the perfect Don Quixote. I wish I knew his name. It's so bad.
I know who you're talking about.
Rosa.
Joe, I know. He's European or Spanish or.
Yeah. Shit, he was I mean, he looks like Don Quixote incarnate.
Yeah,
you know. What I mean?
Yeah. So that dude dies, right? And then there was a flood, and the entire set was swept away, and it was terrible.
Oh my God! But it's back on his IMDb list here.
I noticed there was something at the top in production or slated that had something to do with Quixote. I didn't investigate, but I saw that there. Yeah,
maybe.
Damn, Terry Gilliam's an old dude now, though, man. You know, it's like I'd love to see him do it. It's like it worries me that he won't be able to finish.
Well, he's in what, his 70s?
Yeah, 74.
Yeah, at that point, you never know. I mean, look what happened with Kubrick and Eyes Wide Shut. You know, I mean, they tweaked that movie around a little bit after he died too. You know, I mean, so you want him to be able to complete the film.
I would love to just see him complete something before the dude, something of the level that he's done in the past. Something great as his swan song would be awesome.
You want a great one. You need one more great one from this. I could go for a great one too.
I think that this Don Quixote thing would be it, man. Like his swan song, you know.
Yeah.
I think his name is Francisco Riguera.
Oh, nice.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's who it is. We all know him. That guy's awesome. Gilliam did a movie like a year and a half ago called The Zero Theorem with Christoph Waltz. I don't know if anybody's been able to see this film. I haven't.
I have not seen that one. No.
Yeah. Something we should definitely look into, Joe.
Yes, I'm gonna put that on.
When you guys were talking about watching Brazil and standard def and letterbox versus high def Blu-ray, this was a movie that do you guys remember the Columbia Broadcasting, or what was it, the Columbia House DVD Club? Do you guys remember that stuff?
What, like where you could order like records or tapes through the mail?
The 10 for a penny.
Yeah, So I when I was like 18 or something, I signed up for it, 10 for a penny, and then like a movie a month. But keep in mind, guys, this is VHS, and Brazil was one of my first 10 that I picked. I was trying to build my library of the classics, my favorites, and so the dozens and dozens of times that I watched Brazil through the first part of my in my 20s, even up to probably 30 or so, was all on VHS.
Yeah,
so
which is perfect for Brazil.
Exactly. I don't know that I'd even seen it in true super high def until I just watched it this last time for the show here.
Me too.
Every movie needs to be witnessed in its most perfect state, Joe. No matter what.
It would be great to see this in film on a film print on some art house if that ever happened.
I don't care if it's Summer School starring Mark Harmon or Brazil. It Things need to be witnessed perfectly.
First time right there. First time in history, those two movies been mentioned in the same sentence.
What about the movies that Max picked for next week? Would you want to see those in film as well?
This guy with these movies. I don't know what's going on here. I might not even have time to watch them, to be honest with you.
Actually, I can't. I think I saw what one of them was that I had seen at his recommendation, and it was really good. I forget. It's one of I can't remember the name of it. It's the one with Colin Hanks.
Okay.
I don't know. I know that he is. I mean, I know that he's in one of them. I'm not sure which ones, but for those of you curious about what we're up to, next week we're coming at you with where did you get those? No, I'm sorry. We're coming at you with Girl House from 20.
Girl House. Now that really needs to be seen in its pristine.
And then we're going to be doing 2006 film Alone with Her.
That's the one.
And 1984's Paris, Texas.
Well, that's actually I would like to see that one.
Great.
That's Harry Dean Stanton, I think.
Harry Dean Stanton and Wim Wenders.
Wim Wenders.
Yeah, so there we go. I mean, that's not. I mean, that should be interesting. But I always get. Here's the thing with Mr. Cook when he picks these movies. Whenever he picks these newer movies, sometimes they're like these super low budget, like that. What was that horror movie he picked for the Halloween special this past year? Was fucking 15 Murders or something. And then he had me trying to set up an interview with the director, and the guy was just so annoying. Oh my god! I'm like, yeah, we'll pass. But, no. Joe. It's always great to have Max Cook on, isn't it?
Well, is it great for you? Because you're always a guy on the ropes whenever he's on. You're always defending him.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you real quick, Joe.
That last episode, Tom, was something else, man.
Dude, listen, I'm talking to my mom yesterday on Mother's Day, and we had this nice, conversation, and at the very end, she's like, "Hey, can I ask you something?" She's like, "What's with your friend Max Cook?" And I'm like, what? I'm like, what's the problem? He's like, well, he's making me feel like I'm a lousy mother. And I'm like, Mom, why? What is he doing? He's like, well, he posted on my timeline about how you're getting the gout, and I need that my son needs help, and he needs a new computer, and he's just making me feel really lousy.
Oh my God. I have a recommendation that I think if you can get your mom to Skype in for 10 minutes just to address this directly with Max on the next show, I think that would be a smart choice.
I would be all for that. I think a mini episode should be devoted to that.
Yeah, I'd like to actually be a part of that. So maybe a mini episode where we can just, we can get this all resolved. We'll go straight to the source, man.
So what you're telling me, Tom, is that Max is busy on Skype making you feel like a bad human, and then he goes onto Facebook to make your mom feel like a bad mom.
I mean, look, I don't. Maybe she took it the wrong way. I don't know, but she felt bad. She was like, what is he saying? I'm not a good mother. I don't understand what he's saying. And I'm like, Ma, just ignore him. I'm like, he's
all coming from a place of love.
And taking that kind of line crossing anyway is the wrong way.
You think he's crossing a line here?
I feel like that's a bit much.
You're right. First of all, why are they friends? Why is he friends with my mother on Facebook?
Max is friends with everyone on Facebook.
Yes, I think there's your answer right there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think as far as the mutual friends category are concerned, he's got them. Him and I, we have 50 mutual friends on this thing.
There you go.
It's crazy.
Max has friends. Max has friends and fans all over the world. He's got international appeal. I'm telling you.
Listen to him. You know what Max would say right now? Over 4 million views on YouTube. That's exactly what he would say.
So, Tom, are you feeling all right about all that stuff? You know what Max would be saying right now if he was on. Now, Thomas, how is your gout, and what are you planning to do about this computer situation?
Right. Joe, you want to have fun with me right now because the computer situation right now is A+.
Well, it's good. What's going on? It sounds great. What happened? Changed? What's different?
I figured out I do something.
You got rid of your dial-up.
No, I have. Before I come on, I don't even know how to use these technical terms. I I restart the modem and the wireless together because I think running together for a long time, something happened. So before I kind of figured it out after we got off the air last week. I was like, you know what? I think that might have been the problem because my wireless went out for a second, and then I didn't restart the modem. So before this session here, I did both, and it seems like we're going pretty steady, Joe.
There you go. We have not had any dropouts. It's amazing. It's actually a miracle to actually have a conversation with you guys.
You got the gout out of your computer.
And
since Max isn't here, Tom, how's your gout?
It's fine.
What'd you do for yourself? You fixed it out. You got it out of your computer. So you're next.
I'll be honest with you. I was in. Yeah, I saw. I went to Philadelphia this weekend.
I'm so sorry.
And I saw the replacements, and then I stayed overnight at a hotel, and I woke up Sunday morning, and there was a little tenderness in my right foot.
Oh, boy.
That's what happens in Philly.
Yeah, that's what happens in Philly. Exactly.
Philly inflames gout.
It does, and it's well known for that. Rocky Balboa
and Ben Franklin both had the gout.
Yeah. I thought you were saying Rocky Balboa had the gout, and you could see him limping up the steps the first time.
You're right.
No, but I got home in time to put an end to it quick with my medications.
There you go. Take care of yourself, Tom.
I will. And that's all that needs to be said, Joe. Hey, Tom, just take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, my friend. Good night. Have a good night. Sleep.
Thank you.
Have a good day tomorrow. That's it. We don't need anything more than that. And as far as my mother coming on this show is concerned, never going to happen.
No, I think that's a mistake.
I will never. Dude.
That would be the funniest thing.
I'm telling you, I think your fans want to hear it.
I think it would be good.
Let me ask. What do you think, Jeff?
Nah.
Ooh. He thinks it crosses a line. Jeff's like, no, don't.
I could certainly understand why you wouldn't, but it would be funny, very funny for the rest of us.
I'm glad it would be. You guys, all right. Hey, listen. Let's get out of here. Joe, I got to tell you, man, thanks a lot for bringing these 3 films to the table the past 2 weeks. I had a
my pleasure, man.
Phantasmagoria, man.
Awesome.
Nicely done.
There you go.
I can't remember the last time I did the show where I was just really, really happy watching all 3 movies.
Well, I think that was the most gushing segment that we've ever had. And I think that the only, Jeff would have given us a hard time about it, except that it's such a friggin' dense movie that it's hard. Oh, yeah. It's hard to talk against it.
And I don't want to be misunderstood as not liking it. I thought it was great, but I just didn't, I wasn't quite at the level of the rest of you guys.
Right.
Well, you don't say I need to take it all in a couple more times.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to hit it. It's lived with us for a long time, obviously. So, but that was really cool to have a segment like that. That was so that everybody was really loved the movie so much.
Yeah. I mean, how could you not, dude? How could you not? It's so.
Well, I'm sure there are people who don't like it. I'm positive. Yeah. The distributors did not like it, and I think it lost money at the box office.
I'm sure it did.
I'm sure it did.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure it did. I could definitely see that without a doubt. Yep. Oh my God.
There's no account.
Well, listen, I'm going to plug a few things before we go, but we got Adam here, and it's his last and Jeff. It's their last appearances on the cutting room before our big summer break. We only have 2 episodes left, and we're getting ready to go on our little 3-month hiatus, a very well-earned 3-month hiatus. Almost 4 months, actually. It'll probably be more like 4 months, after these next 2 episodes. But I know Adam's been working hard. He with Starland PC. I'm going to let you guys know where to check that out in just a few minutes. Adam, do you have anything new for us?
Well, it's in its final mix. It's going to be done. We're going to be having a cast and crew, friends and family screening party at one of the studios out here in June, and then we'll probably be, at that point, we'll figure out if we're going to put it up online or what we're going to do. And if we do that, we'll certainly let you know. In the meantime, another preview will be going up at starlandpc.com. So there'll be some new stuff up there to check out. But yeah, it's getting close and very excited. Very excited about it.
We'll definitely keep everyone posted on that, Adam. And that sounds
I appreciate
nice,
it.
Man.
Yeah, totally.
Congratulations, dude.
And
Thank you.
Jeffrey, anything cool going on in the summer? What are you up to?
Well, Black Wine is taking the year off.
No touring.
Yeah.
Is this the first summer you've taken off in a while from touring?
Yeah, I didn't tour a couple summers ago. I've taken a couple summers of not touring, but this is the first year of like just no band activity. Kind of like we've been going hard for 5 years. We're like let's give ourselves work on other stuff that we want to do. I'm going to try to get a lot more writing done this summer, and maybe hopefully pick it back up next year.
It's a collective agreement here with everyone in the band.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're all three of you are like, you know what? Let's just take it easy. Let's we'll get back together in a few months, and we'll see what's up.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool. Very cool, dude. So what are you doing? What are you going to do with your time here?
I'm going to relax, which is something
I definitely
that I have a hard time doing.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Relaxing.
Because even like if I have like a show coming up in like 3 weeks, I'm like, that's all. I'm like, I can't do anything else. I can't schedule anything else because it might conflict, and not having that.
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's fucking weird too, man.
Yeah.
I definitely suffer from that too sometimes, which is why, Joe, that's why I don't do anything.
That's a good strategy.
It's like when we end the show in a couple of weeks, anybody that wants me to go anywhere over the summer, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I got a cutting room in September. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. I'll get back to you. Definitely. But that's pretty funny. Well, dude, enjoy your time off. Definitely relax, and we look forward to hopefully getting some more Black Wine activity within the next year, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd love it. All right, guys. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast is brought to you by Christiana Productions and New Media Limited. The show is edited and co-produced by Joseph Schreck and produced by Thomas Detloff and Joe Christiana. And I just want to take a second while Max Cook is in here to do a big on-air, as far as I'm concerned, a big on-air thank you to Joe, who's really gone out of his way to see this podcast through this season.
Oh, thank you.
No, I mean, seriously, you really, you've stepped up on numerous occasions. I've been very cranky. I've had a horrible working experience, which is now going to change. And I've been very exhausted, physically exhausted from this job, unlike any other job I've ever had, mentally and physically. And my computer's been on the fritz. And we're going to solve all that stuff over the summer. I'm going to get a new computer, and
That's your marching orders, Tom. You're going to do it, dude.
Yeah.
No problem, man.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing this, so I do want to lighten my load a little bit, but I do enjoy doing it. I'm happy to keep it running.
And I really, honestly wanted to thank you on air, dude. You're a great friend. You're my brother, and I love you very much. And,
thank you, man.
I'm sure that the listeners really appreciate your effort, and everyone's effort and everything.
It's good, man. It's important that the people on the show, their opinions are incredibly important. So it's very important that we get as much of our opinions out into the world, into the sphere as possible, because the world needs our opinions on movies more than it needs oxygen, practically. So we will continue until our dying breath to bring you our opinions on film. I guarantee that.
That's true. Until I am dead, I'll be sitting in this chair talking about movies that no one has seen for 50 years.
That's exactly right.
And more importantly, they need all of the opinions that contradict everyone else's opinion.
Right. And they need to hear us yelling at each other for every other episode to the point where it causes us stress and break out in anxiety hives.
Now listen, our associate producer Jeremy Garcia of Dartboard Cinema has been a huge help this season as well. He's taken over our social media. He's on Facebook every day. He's on Twitter, Instagram, doing all that stuff for the Cutting Room Movie Podcast. I want to take a second to really thank him very much. With that being said, Joe, Jeremy is going to be on the very last episode.
Oh, is that right? No, here we go.
He's going to be sitting in the chair. He's going to be joining Max, myself, Joe Christiana, and Billy.
Oh boy!
For the two big final episodes.
I'll have to creep out on his Facebook page. What do you call it? Stalk, or what do you call it when you're creeping on someone's Facebook page or whatever?
Yeah.
I'll have to catch up with Jeremy and see what he's up to.
Some random guy was creeping me out and stalking me on Facebook. All right, you can like us on Facebook at the Cutting Room Movie Podcast and follow us on Twitter at Cutting Room Podcast at TCRMP1 because you don't know how many of them are going to follow, Joe.
That's right. Here's what Jeremy recently posted 8 minutes ago. A picture of Obama with a giant pair of boobs. Obama's photoshopped with a giant pair of like triple F boobs with an American flag bra. That's what Jeremy's concerned with. Is
he saying that he doesn't like Obama by posting?
Somewhere, some point, someone found this to be necessary a thing. He says it is not necessary to have this photo, but he'll paste it onto it.
Gotcha.
That sounds very pro-Obama to me, though, actually.
Yes.
You put big, beautiful tits and American flag on anything, right? And that's pro that thing, right?
That's what we're all about here in the old USA. You can follow me on Twitter, Thomas Detloff, at TCRM Podcast. No 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just TCRM Podcast. You can also check out Joe's film work at ChristianaProductions.com. Check out Adam's new show, Starland PC, at StarlandPC.com. Max and Adam's Bowler Hat Productions and their Mimosa Podcast show. Check that out at MaxCookandTheCounselor.com. And check out Max Cook's blog at MaxCookUncorked.com. That was way too much Max Cook for one sentence. Music from the Cutting Room is done by the Zillatones. Check them out at www.thezillatones.com or search for the Zillatones at ReverbNation.com. We'll be back next week with Girl House from 2014. Until then, we are over and we are out. Ciao.
Satisfy more of your strange desires. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast. We do chicken right.
I disappeared for a second, but I'm back.
Okay. Well, I think that it's a matter of taste when you get down to great films like 2001, Citizen Kane, Brazil, and like whatever else typically tops the list of best film, Goodfellas or The Godfather.
Sure.
All those films.
Sure.
It just becomes a matter of personal taste. But
absolutely.
I think like you and I, Tom, I think that we both came upon this film at a time in our lives where we were first realizing that film is
important,
like
really
probably the most important art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was the most important art form of at least our time. So
absolutely.
And when I saw it, I was confounded. I was blown away. Like it took me probably 2 years to even understand that the film was a comedy because I was so fucking blown away. It's so dense. It took me probably 2 years to even understand what was happening in the story because I was so involved with.
It's so funny you say that. That's so true. Even as how Monty Python-esque it could be at times. Yeah, you're right, Joe. You don't really completely understand when you first watch this film what exactly the tone is and what's going on.
Like if I saw it now for the first time, I would, obviously more savvy. I'd be like, oh, this is a satire. This is, you know what I mean? It's political commentary, this and that and the other thing. I had no way to place it when I saw it. It is so dense, man. I would focus on, the littlest things and not even on like just stuff like the menus, what the
Perfect film. I don't think there might possibly not even be a better film ever made than this film right here.
And I know that's high praise, sir. Praise.
But listen, I know it's a lot to say, and it's kind of it's kind of ridiculous to say, but I really think it's true. I think this is it. This is the film. This is the perfect film. It's unbelievably good. It's unbelievably good. And Adam, let's start at the beginning of your intro, because nobody comes across this film now unless it's really passed down from like someone that might be a little bit older than you, or maybe you're your same age, but you just don't go, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to watch Brazil today. Joe, this is true, man. Somebody turns you on to a film like this.
Well, for me, for sure, and I agree with you guys, and it's so great that this movie came up, and it's so close to both of you guys, and that both of you consider it among your favorites, maybe your number one,
right?
And me too, man. It's definitely within the top five,
absolutely,
for me.
And I think viewing it recently, it's without a doubt top three. I don't think I could come across a more beautiful, a more perfect, a more poignant, a more fantastic film than Brazil. I don't even think it's possible. If there's something, hey, listen, any of our listeners, if you have any suggestions, and it doesn't have to be the same subject, but this is a perfect movie.
It ends up. Oh, hold on, pause. Adam, you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Takes us not into the future, but sidesteps us into a slightly alternative now, a dystopian, totalitarian society utterly dependent on its own unnecessarily convoluted technology and under the constant threat of terrorist attack. Enter Sam Lowry, an uneasy technocrat happy to be a nameless, faceless cog in the wheel working for the Ministry of Information. Sam's routine is dull, lonely, and without meaning. But he just doesn't seem to care. He's just trying to get through the day as unscathed by humanity as possible. He just wants to be left alone. But fate seems to be conspiring against Sam, and he himself even puts up impossible barriers in his own dreams, fantasies of flight where he escapes the daily drudgery while pursuing his beautiful dream mate. As Sam tries to deliver a compensation check for the wrongful death of Harry Buttle, his path crosses with the very girl from his dreams. He also runs into a former government employee, Harry Tuttle, now working as a mercenary HVAC repairman. And the government is after Tuttle, but accidentally arrested Buttle, and, well, poor Sam is eventually mistaken for a terrorist himself, forcing him and his dream girl to flee from their militarized government. Lowry's adventure comes to a phantasmagoric conclusion, however, at the hands of Michael Palin in a grotesque baby mask, leaving our hero as a drooling, humming, broken man in an ironic state of perpetual bliss, at last alone with his dream girl, if only in his dreams. In his masterpiece, Gilliam manages to create a frenetic and harried world cluttered by zigzagging ductwork, a maze of wires, and other doodads and thingamajigs that hum and buzz and clank and breathe inside every room and every wall. He brilliantly moves technology. So 30 years ago, I noticed by this way I said I was going to keep it brief, and then
start with 30 years.
3 decades to cover now.
I'm just going to talk fast. So 30 years ago, 1985, I'm 16 years old. I was in a Los Angeles-based band, The Just. So one day, the drummer, Eric Asadorian, one of my closest friends to this day, actually 30 years later, unilaterally and summarily ceased speaking to me. There was no explanation. Had I offended him somehow? He didn't seem to be upset with me. So, quite the contrary, actually. I couldn't figure it out. This went on for a day or two. During which, through a series of clever clues and ciphers, I slowly began to unfold his cryptic message. He had seen the movie Brazil, and he felt so strongly that I needed to see it that he refused to speak to me until I had done so. Sure, there was there was kind of a weird Brazilian redundant mixed message there, and it just may have been easier for him to just tell me how fucking good this movie was and just go fucking see it ASAP. But we were young and stupid and trying to be cocksure rock stars, and back then, it just all made sense. At the time, I knew very little about this movie, Brazil. I knew that it was directed by and starred the dudes from Monty Python, and Monty Python had been a part of my life for a few years at that point. They were nothing short of godlike deities. And I knew there were some dudes from the Royal Shakespeare Company in it, like that guy from Something Wicked This Way Comes, so that was kind of cool. And I knew De Niro was in it, and he was the biggest badass whatever was to me at the time, so I went. I was not prepared. My 16-year-old mind was blown. Gilliams' visionary masterpiece takes simultaneously forward and backward, creating a steampunk world of gratuitous complication, a world where technology constantly fails, creating more havoc and more problems than solutions. The production design is brilliant. The script by Gilliam, Tom Stoppard, and Gilliam's go-to guy, Charles McGowan, is of Orwellian clairvoyance. Gilliam's unmistakable message is a familiar one, a warning that for all the technology that enters our lives, with the promises of making things easier and faster and better and cooler, it also makes things more difficult, impersonal, autocratic, and susceptible to attack. Like many great artists, Gilliam was ahead of his time, seeing into a not-too-distant future where government has ground to a halt, bureaucracy has collapsed under the weight of its own paperwork and redundancies, and our reliance on technology makes us more vulnerable than ever before. But Brazil is so much more than just a cautionary tale. It speaks to the nature of our very society and culture today, questioning our hyper-reactivity to the thought of terrorism and how much freedom we're willing to relinquish in order to have the appearance of safety. In fact, I personally think that Gilliam's most prescient moment in the film comes at the very beginning of Brazil, in the context of an interview with a high-ranking official in the Ministry of Information. When questioned about the recent rash of terrorist bombings, the motives are attributed to bad sportsmanship. 30 years later, and the sentiment is more relevant than ever.
Yeah, Adam, excellent job as always, man. So much to be talked about here, so much to be said, so much to be thought about. Let me just first say this. This is probably, in all the time that cinema has existed, this is probably the